Hey, Heather.
Hey, Susie.
How are you? Happy Monday.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Ready for the week. So, yeah. Well, today we're talking about dating after abuse or dating after an abusive relationship. We were live last week and we were talking about the phases of a narcissistically abusive relationship, and some questions came up around dating towards the end of our lives. So, we wanted to spend some time today talking about this topic. We've got some helpful, I think, tips and tricks and things that we've learned on our own journeys. So I'm excited to talk about this today. It'll be good.
It is a very popular topic. And as the seasons are getting colder, a lot of people are trying to find their mate. So
That's right. Yeah. It's that season of dating. So
who am I going to bunker down with this winter?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's such a relevant topic for people who have come out of these abusive relationships. And it's something that I hear from pretty much every woman that I work with. If they are, kind of on their healing journey, starting to consider dating again, the biggest thing that comes up that I hear is, how can I possibly trust somebody again? The idea of doing that, I think, is a really scary thought. We think everybody is abusive. I know that's kind of the mind frame I was in when I first started dating. I was obviously super sensitive to red flags and doing background checks on people and doing all the things to try to make myself feel like I can trust again. So it's good we're talking about it. But maybe we just start with kind of some things to keep in mind, or some general advice that we would each give before people start jumping into the dating pool. So before we even start dating, like, what are some things that people should be focused on or thinking about? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, I really think that I've seen two different types of people, right? Like, and myself included in that, but there's a group of people that just can't stand the thought of being alone, and they're very fearful that they're going to be and stay alone. And so they like jump right back into the dating pool to either distract themselves from the past relationship or try to move on and forget as quickly as they possibly can. And then there's another group of people who are like, I don't ever want to do this again. I could never date. I don't think that I could love another human being the way that I loved the narcissistic person. I don't think that I could ever connect with anybody. I am so hurt right now that dating is like the last thing on my mind. And what ends up happening is that's like the initial phase. But once you get to like withdrawing from the relationship, that idea and that concept becomes harder to avoid, right? Like, because you're going through a phase of craving being around that person, or craving the dopamine, or craving the relationship in general. And if you can't get it from that other person, like, that's typically the point in time where you go back with the abuser, or you're like, I have to go date and try, like, I miss being in a relationship and I want to go date. So I caution everyone to go into dating with, during those phases. And so the best piece of advice I can give you is, before you go into the dating world after abuse, is to know why you're dating to begin with. What are you? Because if you're going into this thinking that you are going to find a missing piece of yourself within somebody else, it's a mistake, right? Like, we never want to go into dating. And this was a concept that was largely missed by me, right? Like, I was always constantly searching for myself, searching for who I was, and trying to fit in and find my place. And I did that through relationships and with people. And so before you jump into the dating world, I will say that finding yourself and discovering who you are alone is probably it's the most uncomfortable, but the most
Mhm.
important part of healing. So,
For sure. Yeah. It's funny as you were talking about kind of the polar opposite people, or mindset of people who are considering dating. And I was thinking as you were talking about that, would my advice be any different for either one of those people? And I don't know that it would be. I think the advice would be the same. Like you said, just rediscovering yourself for anybody coming out of these relationships is important because we most oftentimes lose ourselves in them. We either for survival reasons or whatever it might be, we deprioritize ourselves. We compromise our values, our thoughts, our beliefs, who we are to just keep ourselves safe and keep ourselves out of out of conflict as much as we can. So it is so important to just take a minute and start thinking about, who am I? What are my values? What do I actually like doing with my free time, and exploring those things. And it's like you said, it's a painful process, but it can also be really fun. Just to do some of the things maybe you've been holding off on doing because you couldn't in that relationship. Was there anything that you did when you kind of got to that place of, I really need to kind of rediscover who I am? Was there anything fun that you've did or explored?
so I think with me, I lost I felt like my physique, I lost a lot of my physical attributes, and I started in the gym, right? It was almost like this is going to be my big
Mhm.
comeback.
Yes, the glow up.
and so and so the first thing I did was like joined a hardcore gym, and because I'm very impatient, I'm a person that likes to see results like instantly. And so
Mhm.
if I'm not doing a workout routine that like makes me lose 20 pounds overnight, I'm
Yeah.
done with it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I think I started in the gym with physical activity. And but even after that, like even after I felt like my physical appearance was coming back, it wasn't enough, right? Like, and that's not, I don't want to scare anyone. I want to say that these phases of healing and shedding are very, it takes time to do, right? And so
Sure.
um, it takes more than physical activity, but that is where I started in the gym and just kind of getting to know people in my community around me that I hadn't
Mhm.
necessarily had the permission to do
Mhm.
over the course of however many years it was, right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
where I started.
Yeah. That sounds similar to me. I definitely use some of my free time to like work on my physical self and socialize with people that I hadn't been able to socialize with for a long time, and just start building that support system, the support network. Martial arts, I think I've talked about on here before. That was something that I found to be really healing and kind of a way to just get back to some of the pieces of myself that I felt like I had lost along the way. So that was something that really worked well for me. But yeah, it can be a really fun part of healing. I think ultimately what you want to do is create a life for yourself that where you're so happy spending time with yourself, you're so happy with this new life that you're creating, that as you start dating and if you start sensing red flags in someone, or that, yeah, you could be going down the same path again, that you realize like, hell no, I'm not doing this again. I love my
Right.
life. I'm not going to compromise where I'm at now. And this has taken a lot of work. So it's a no. And I think when you set yourself up for that, it's so much easier to say no. Um, so yeah, a great starting point. And I think the other part of that is getting started on your healing journey. You know, we do a workshop specifically on the road to, it's called the road to recovery, and how understanding how abuse has affected you and learning what tools and resources you have to get going on your own healing journey. I think that's another important thing. Um, Do you think that you have to be fully healed to start dating again?
I don't believe in fully healed.
Mhm.
I also, I mean, one of the first things that we learn in trauma recovery is the only way to heal. The only way to heal attachment wounds is to find a secure attachment in someone. And I think that anyone listening that has gone through this can certainly say that they didn't have that they may have had some childhood attachment wounds that created an anxious attachment type, or an anxious avoidant, or an avoidant. And so those sort of attachment types, those styles, they can't really be healed until you find a safe person to heal them with.
Mhm.
I think that I think I healed a lot of those attachment wounds with my therapist, like, because I
Mhm.
also went to therapy once I realized, like, I need, going to the gym and going to, going out on the town with the girls, like all of that kind of stuff. I still felt very empty, and I needed to figure out how to manage, this new life that I was trying to build. Um,
Mhm.
so I healed some of those attachments with my therapist. And I will say that healing those attachment wounds also come into play when you're in when you finally decide to commit to being in a romantic relationship.
Mhm.
So, so no, you don't walk into a relationship fully healed after
Mhm.
abuse, because I mean, you've done enough. You need to do enough work on yourself to ensure that your nervous system is balanced, that you have a decent foundation that you've built, right, for who you are now, and you have an idea of who you want in a partner, why you want a life partner, and your set of boundaries. But once you get into a committed relationship after abuse, the triggers are going to happen, and they are going to continue to happen. And unless you're with someone safe enough that's going to work through them with you, that is really where the real healing starts. Because
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Susie, but um,
Mhm.
once I did all the work on myself and I decided to venture back out into dating, um, things like, I hadn't been to therapy in probably 6 or 7 months. And then the
Mhm.
minute I started dating, I was like back in the therapy chair, because
Yeah,
like trigger after trigger after trigger.
totally.
What the hell is wrong with me?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally normal for sure. Yeah. No, I asked the question of, do you have to be fully healed to start dating again? Because I knew you would answer that you don't have to be, but I do think it's kind of a myth or a misconception that, oh, I have to be fully healed. I gotta, complete all this work I've got set out to do on myself before I even start dating again. And I just want to bust that myth, because I think what you laid out are definitely things people need to do. People need to take their time and not rush into these relationships. But I feel like that myth creates this sense of like brokenness, that people are not worthy of love or finding a good person for themselves if they haven't fully healed. So,
yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about that. So, what about just how do people meet people to date? Do you have any tips on that? What, or anything you want to share from your own personal journey of what worked for you?
I had a very short lived experience on dating apps. That is probably the most common way that people meet other people. I did not like the dating apps. So
Yeah, they're
I know there are a lot of people that use them and like them. I know people who met their husband or wives on dating
mhm,
apps. And I am just not I don't know if it's because I'm an introvert and I don't know how to do small talk that I don't like dating apps. I don't know why, but that is one. That's a very long-winded answer. That is one way to meet people is through dating apps. And if you are doing the dating apps, make sure that you have safety plans and make sure that you are sharing with friends and family where you're going, where you're meeting up, just to make sure that you are, that you keep it safe and people know how to find you and reach you. Another thing you can do is you can get involved in activities around your community, whether it's volunteer at a church, if you're a member of a church, if you want to volunteer in your church, if there are opportunities at local events. Believe it or not, if you have kids that are in school, joining things like for the PTO would probably be a really good way to meet someone who is also a parent and has, similar, has maybe
similar life, similar life circumstances. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's all I have. That's really all I have. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I would say the same things. The dating apps, obviously, when you're busy and you're trying to juggle single parenthood, working, kids, all the things, that it feels like a necessary evil. Sometimes it's not for everybody, but that is how I met my boyfriend is through a dating app. So they can work and they do work, but like you said, you got to tread carefully, make sure you're smart about it. And be safe. And I totally agree with just, again, it kind of goes back to rediscovering yourself and figuring out what it is that you like to do. Because if you're out there doing things you love, whether it's an activity or volunteering or whatever, that's usually when we're at our best selves, right? And we want to meet people with similar interests. So a great advantage to starting to explore those things is you might meet somebody that is really great. So I think those are both really great suggestions. Obviously, your friends and family who become aware of your new singlehood may try to connect you with people. And that's another great way to explore dating. And for me, I don't think I ever had anyone try to set me up on a date.
Oh, I did.
There are not many single parents out where I live, so I never
I
had
anybody. I had a friend who was always like, "Oh, you need to meet this person. You should meet that person. You should." And I was just like, "No,
yeah,
no, thank you."
It can have its pros and cons, I guess. If things don't work out, it can be awkward. But if you're feeling, if it gives you that sense of safety and security, like, okay, at least I know somebody who knows this person, it can be a good thing to explore.
Well, that, and everybody has a great blind date story, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think those are all great suggestions. And like you said, just being careful and in the dating, if you're going out with somebody that you don't know, the internet is a wonderful resource, and you can actually find quite a bit out by doing Google searches. So I encourage you to do your homework and things like that to keep yourself safe. But and then what about just kind of getting back to that fear of falling back into the same trap again, getting into a relationship again with somebody who's abusive, narcissistic? Any tips there on how to, besides what we've already talked about, which is kind of working on yourself and getting to a place where you won't tolerate that behavior? Any other advice that you would give for not getting into that situation again?
Yeah, I will start by saying I think I have coached some clients that have said many times, but they're not a bad person, right? Like he's not a bad guy. She's not a bad woman. It's more so like they can't really put their finger on why they're dissatisfied with this new dating potential, I guess I could say, this new potential partner. But they continue to date them because they don't have a reason to necessarily break it off.
Yeah.
And so I will start there. If you have this gut feeling that this person is not for you, I think setting the expectation with yourself up front that you don't need a reason to break it off with someone.
Right.
I think that comes from this deep-rooted people-pleasing within us,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, well, they didn't really do anything wrong, so I don't really want to say, I don't want to hurt their feelings and make them feel rejected because I just don't even have a reason as to why I don't want to continue to date this person. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel a connection with the person, that is all the reason that you need
Yeah.
to end the relationship.
Right.
So I think I'll start there.
That's so
Because
good.
a
Yeah. I
lot of
love that you
people,
said that. So what was coming to my mind is enough of it. This not being a hell yes situation is enough of a reason to walk away. So
yes,
I love that you said that.
yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really uncomfortable. And I think if you've been in abuse, there are several people who have gone from one abusive relationship to another, trading different types of abuses. And so I think when you've gone through so many cycles of abuse with different people, it's like you're waiting for them to do something wrong or abusive so that you have a get out of
Oh,
jail free card, when
right.
really you can just sit down with the person and say, hey, I'm sorry, I don't see this going anywhere, and I've had a really nice time going out on dates or whatever, but this just isn't going to work. And that's all
Mm-hmm.
the reason that you need to end the
Right.
relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In
That's
terms
good.
of not falling victim again, I would say time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Not getting too caught up in, like, letting the relationship progress extremely fast like they do in
Yes.
narcissistic relationships. Um, Time is the best indicator of understanding a person's true character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really believe that evaluating how they handle conflict is, like, the number one indicator for me. Um, like,
Yeah.
something makes you uncomfortable, and it doesn't have to be anything they done wrong, right? It could just be
Mm-hmm.
something that brought up an old feeling, and like if they made up a joke and they're like, oh, I'm just joking, right?
Right.
That's a good time to say, okay, listen, that offended me, or that's just, draw a boundary line for them to say, I don't really
Mm-hmm.
like jokes about that. If you could please respect, my wishes and not make jokes about that. It brings up something hurtful from my past. You don't even have to explain. Just, set that boundary
Mm-hmm.
and see how they respond to it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
a healthy person is going to handle that with compassion and kindness and love. An abusive person is going to gaslight you and
Mm-hmm.
try to make you feel like you have offended them for bringing something to their attention that you are not okay with. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think conflict is a really good one to observe when you're trying to make sure that you're not falling into another abusive situation. I know we had some other
Mm-hmm.
ones, but
No,
I'll
that
let
was
you
so good.
answer.
No, I think you covered all of them. And one thing that I was going to say too, knowing that you need to go into these relationships, going to dating with the ability to set boundaries. That's again something most of us struggle with who find ourselves in these relationships. That could be something to focus on in that those early days of, again, healing, rediscovering yourself. Learn and practice and learn how to set boundaries, so that when you go into these relationships, you feel comfortable doing that and you're ready to do that. So that's just something that I would kind of throw into that first part, what we talked about. But your advice to
Yeah.
go slow and move slow is so important and so key. So
The only thing that I would add, I'm sorry, I know that we're
that's
like
okay.
right at time, but
No,
I will say one of the things that I wrote about in my book was being comfortable with getting vulnerable with people, right? A lot of times we are either afraid that we're going to offend someone by setting a boundary, or we're afraid to let someone know that we care about them and they could possibly hurt us. And so we don't communicate when we're hurt. Or,
right, right.
or I told a really funny story in my book about, like, he stopped texting me as much as he used to. And that triggered my anxious, that anxious attachment style that I had in myself. And I was like, oh God, he's, not interested anymore. And that little scenario is one of the things that landed me back into therapy, because instead of just, it wasn't even in my mind an option to sit down and say, hey, I feel like maybe you're pulling away a little bit, or you're not as responsive as you normally are. Is there a reason for that? Like, that didn't even cross my mind of an option. And so instead I ran to my therapist. I was like going through this whole big list of, well, what could it be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what
right.
could this possibly be? And so that was a learning experience for me. And that's what dating is going to be,
For
when
sure.
you're healing, is if you're going to learn more about yourself once you are healing, and being able to sit down and be confident and brave enough to be vulnerable with a person when you're feeling some type of way. I'll just say that. Like, when you feel some type of way, and your first knee-jerk reaction is to like run to your friends and family and be like, the right thing to do. You've got to make an agreement with yourself to sit down and have the conversation that may feel a little uncomfortable, but it will get you the answers that you need about this person, and you'll feel like 20 times better for handling it in a new, healthy way versus stuffing it down and not sharing with them that you're uncomfortable about something.
Yeah, for sure. Communication is key. So so I think our last bit of advice in this whole topic, and I'm sure we've got more that we could draw from, but just kind of closing it out with the thoughts of just managing your expectations going into dating. We want to encourage everybody to do that. It's an exciting time. And I think we all hope that first date we go on is going to be like the one, and one and done. It's going to be amazing. I don't have to keep doing all this dating stuff, but that's just typically not reality. So managing
especially if you're on the dating apps.
Yes. Yeah. So manage your expectations. Know that you're going to come across some frogs before you find that prince. It's kind of going into it, committing to yourself to have several first dates with people, and kind of treating those dates as an experiment of exploring different personalities, testing these things you're talking about, boundaries, vulnerability, like fine tune your skills, you kind of view it as an experiment in a way to, to find that right person, but it's not going to happen overnight. So, take your time and just really explore what's out there.
Yeah.
So,
the only thing I would add to that is to not take it personal, right?
yeah.
Like, there are people, and when I say people, like this was also my way of thinking too. It would steer me away from searching for the partnership that I wanted in a person. And if I had a bad experience, I took it personal. I would take it personal, like they were doing it intentionally, or like this was just the end of the road for me. Every person was a narcissist, or every person was abusive, or every person didn't have their shit figured out, or like I would go through all of these things as to why I was not going to be able to find the right person. And then I would stop and just give it a rest, and then I would get back on the horse again. But I think I wish somebody probably would have said that to me sooner, is don't take it personal, and don't let those experiences make you fearful that you're never going to find the right person for you, if that's what you want, right? Like,
right.
Not everybody. Some people go out, rediscover who they are, and they are completely fine being single and by themselves, and more power to you. Like,
right.
Like, if that's the way that you are, if that life makes you live the happiest version of you, that is absolutely 100% what you should do. But the reason I'm saying is there are many people who are still really seeking companionship and intimacy. And sorry if you can see my
I
cat.
just see the little ears poking at her. That's so cute.
She never
She
is
wants to
on my
come hang
desk.
out with
And
us.
today, she's
Oh,
like,
she knows
"Hello."
we're live. She wants to be involved.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people crave the intimacy and they want a compassionate, they want a compassionate partner to build life with. And if that is truly what you want and you're seeking that, don't let these bad experiences and these frogs keep you from moving forward, because they are out there. They're a little harder to find after you heal and you're, comfortable talking about your feelings. It's harder to find someone else who is also comfortable talking about their feelings and, treat you with love and respect. So
yes, but it can happen for sure. So good. Did we have any questions coming in at all while we were chatting?
I don't think so. I forgot to ask people if they had any question, or, I forgot to announce that in the beginning. We did have a lot of people join. So if you are on the live and you do have any questions about dating after abuse, please feel free to type them in the comments. I'm here and can read them.
Yeah, we can see if any come through as we kind of wrap up. I just wanted to say, I mentioned at the very beginning of our live that we have a workshop coming up, which I think is really relevant to what we're talking about today. It's called the Road to Recovery Workshop. And essentially it kind of does what we've talked about in that first part of learning how abuse has affected you. We spend some time in our workshop talking about that, educating people around the impacts of narcissistic abuse, but also things to consider when you're thinking about your own healing journey. And the purpose of the workshop really is to kind of get people off and going on their own healing journey so that they have an understanding of what tools and resources are out there for them, and they can go off and kind of start that journey themselves. So that workshop is happening on November 9th, and I'll put the link to register for that in the notes here on YouTube. And we also have a support group that we run on our private Facebook group called, oh my gosh, Rise and Thrive Women. Rise and Thrive Women. My mind went blank there. So I'll drop that link in as well. We would love to have you join our private Facebook group. We post a lot of content in there that's helpful for abuse survivors. And we also run a monthly support group out of that group as well. So anybody who'd like to join us there, feel free.
Yes, I love it. Thank you for remembering those plugs,
Sure. Susie. Yeah.
I don't think we have any questions.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks for hanging out with me on a Monday.
Yeah, it was fun. If you guys want to catch us live, we're going live this Thursday, right?
Yes, Thursday, Halloween. We're going to go live over lunch as well. We're right now we have plenty of topics that we could talk about, but we want to hear from you guys. So if there's any topics that you want us to talk about on Thursday, feel free. I was saying, it's Halloween. Maybe we could tie something fun in with Halloween. So if you have any ideas, shoot them our way, and we will try to include those on Thursday.
Yeah. The mask behind narcissism.
The mask, the spookiness of it all. So, all right. Well, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.